The great gathering happened once every year. It was the event every person on the colony waited for with nervous hearts. Lights filled the central hall, and long banners hung from the high ceiling, painted with the symbols of many species who lived together on this new world. Humans had been here for only 3 generations, but in that short time, they had learned that life among other beings required not just trade or talk, but bonds of trust. The choosing was the answer to that need. On this day, every young adult, whether human or alien, was invited to select a mate. This was not only for love, though many hoped for it. It was also for survival. A mate meant protection, companionship, and a promise of strength. Once chosen, the bond was respected by the entire colony. Aaron stood among the lines of humans at the far side of the hall. His hands were clenched at his sides, and his heart beat like drums in his chest. He was not the tallest, nor the strongest, but his eyes were sharp with curiosity. He had waited for this day since he was a child. He watched his older sister step forward and choose a gentle partner from the avian folk. Now it was his turn. All around him, voices rose in excitement. Human youths whispered names of aliens they hoped would notice them. Some laughed nervously, while others stood in silence, too shy to speak. On the opposite side of the hall, hundreds of aliens gathered, each one different in shape and form. Some were scaled, others feathered, others tall and glowing with energy. This was a place where diversity shone, where no 2 figures looked the same. At the front of the hall, the elders of the colony raised their staffs. A deep bell rang, echoing through the vast chamber. The choosing had begun. One by one, names were called. A young human girl named Mira stepped forward, her hair tied back, her face flushed with nerves. She crossed the hall and chose a tall being covered in soft blue feathers. The alien bowed low, accepting her hand, and the crowd cheered. Another boy followed, then another, each making choices that seemed natural. Gentle, friendly, safe. Aaron watched, but his gaze kept drifting elsewhere. There was a figure near the far wall, standing alone. She was taller than most of the humans, her body slender, yet strong. A long cloak of dark fabric hung from her shoulders, and her eyes glowed a deep red under the lights. Her hair fell like a shadow down her back, and her skin was pale, almost silver in tone. She did not laugh, did not cheer, did not look at anyone. She simply watched. Whispers spread quickly. Aaron heard them behind him. "That is one of them," someone said. "They call her a vampire. Wild, dangerous. Who would dare choose her?" The words made Aaron's pulse quicken, but not in fear. Instead, he felt drawn. His eyes could not leave her. She seemed like a storm contained within a single form. Untamed and waiting, more pairings were made, the crowd cheering louder each time. Yet Aaron felt a strange pressure building. Soon his name would be called. What would he do? His family expected him to choose someone safe, perhaps a healer from the gentle folk, or a clever thinker from the scaled kind. That was the wise path. But when the elder's voice finally rang out, calling his name Aaron, his body moved before his thoughts could stop him. He stepped forward into the light. The crowd grew quiet, waiting. His eyes did not search the rows of safe choices. Instead, they found her again, the one with crimson eyes. She stood still, her gaze locked with his now. It was as if the crowd vanished, as if only the 2 of them remained in the hall. Aaron's feet carried him across the wide floor. The silence was so heavy that each step echoed. He heard gasps from behind, felt the sharp stares of the elders. But he did not stop. When he reached her, he stopped only a breath away. She did not move at first. Her eyes studied him, cool and sharp, as though measuring his soul. Then, slowly, she tilted her head, almost curious. Aaron lifted his hand. His fingers trembled, but his voice was steady. "I choose you." The hall erupted in chaos. Some shouted in disbelief, others laughed nervously, and others whispered warnings. Never in the history of the choosing had a human stepped forward to pick one of her kind. She was considered untamed, wild, and dangerous. The woman's crimson eyes narrowed for a moment. Then, to the shock of all, she lifted her pale hand, and placed it in his. Her skin was cool, almost icy, but strong. A faint smile curved her lips, not of warmth, but of challenge. The bell rang again, sealing the choice. Aaron felt the weight of every eye in the hall upon him. His family looked stunned, his friends pale with disbelief. The elders exchanged troubled glances. Yet none could deny the rule of the choosing. A choice once made and accepted could not be undone. The woman's cloak shifted as she stepped forward, standing at his side. She said only one word, her voice smooth yet edged with hidden power. Vera, that was her name. Aaron repeated it softly, as if to seal it in his heart. Vera. Together, they turned and walked out of the hall, the crowd partying in silence. Whispers followed them, some fearful, some filled with awe. Aaron knew the days ahead would not be easy. He had chosen a path no one else dared to walk, but as he glanced at Vera, who walked with calm grace and eyes that burned like fire, he felt no regret. Instead, he felt the stir of something new, something wild. The choosing was meant to bring strength to the colony. Perhaps with her, he would discover a strength greater than anyone expected, and so began the bond of a human and a wild alien vampire woman. A bond that would change not only their lives, but the fate of the colony itself. Aaron had always thought that after the choosing, life would grow easier. He believed a mate meant shared meals, kind words, and the comfort of having someone close during the lonely nights. That was how it had been for his sister and his friends. They had chosen gentle partners, the type who smiled and spoke warmly. But Vera was not gentle. She was not warm. From the moment they left the hall, Aaron felt the weight of his decision. Vera walked beside him in silence, her crimson eyes watching every movement around her. When the other humans passed, they gave the pair wide space, their faces tight with unease. Aaron could hear the whispers following them. Why him? She will destroy him. No human can survive with one of them. Aaron tried to ignore the voices. He had chosen, and she had accepted. That was what mattered. Yet as they walked through the streets of the colony, he realized this was only the beginning. The colony was built of stone and metal, its walls strong enough to keep out wild beasts that roamed the forests beyond. Towers rose high, and walkways stretched across them like bridges in the sky. But even in this strong place, fear lingered. The people glanced at Vera with wary eyes, as if expecting her to bare her fangs at any moment. When they reached the small house Aaron had prepared, he opened the door and stepped aside. Vera entered slowly, her cloak brushing against the frame. She looked around the room, her gaze sharp, scanning every corner as though she were a hunter searching for prey. "This is your home," Aaron said carefully. Vera's eyes rested on him. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she gave a short nod and walked across the room. She touched the wooden table, the plain chairs, the small shelf with a few books. Everything seemed strange to her, as if she were in another world entirely. Aaron tried again. "You can rest here. You are my mate now. That means this is your home too." Still no answer. Vera simply pulled her cloak tighter and sat in the chair with an air of distance. As though she had agreed to nothing beyond this silent presence, Aaron sat opposite her, his thoughts racing. He had imagined this moment many times before the choosing, but none of his dreams had looked like this. He had pictured smiles, laughter, perhaps even warmth. Instead, he felt as if he were sharing the room with a storm that had only begun to stir. The days that followed tested him in ways he had not expected. On the first morning, he woke to find the bed beside him empty. Panic filled him until he noticed the door left open. He rushed outside and found Vera standing at the edge of the colony wall, staring at the forest beyond. Her eyes glowed in the fading night, and her pale face seemed almost otherworldly. "Why are you here?" Aaron asked, still catching his breath. Vera did not look at him. "The night speaks. I listen." Her words were few, her voice smooth yet distant. Aaron realized she was not one for long speeches. Still, he wanted to understand. "The night frightens others," he said. "Most do not go outside until dawn." Vera turned her head slightly, her crimson eyes meeting his. "Fear is not my way." And without waiting, she leaped from the wall. Erin's heart stopped as she landed silently on the ground far below. She moved like shadow, slipping into the trees until she vanished from sight. Erin stood frozen, torn between running after her and trusting she would return. Hours passed before she came back, her cloak carrying the scent of wild earth and leaves. She looked unchanged, yet something in her gaze told him she had been hunting. On the second day, Erin tried to share food with her. He placed a bowl of cooked grain and fruit on the table, hoping she would accept. Vera stared at it for a long while before pushing it gently aside. "I do not eat this," she said simply. Erin frowned. "Then what do you eat?" Her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, but she gave no answer. Instead, she rose and left the house. When she returned later, her expression was calm and her steps light, as though she had fed in her own way. Erin did not ask again, though his curiosity burned. By the third day, he realized what others had warned him about. Vera was not like any partner in the colony. She did not follow human ways, did not sit by the fire to talk, did not laugh with neighbors or greet friends. She was wild, untamed, living by her own rules, yet in small moments. Erin began to see something different. One evening, as the sky turned gold, he found her on the rooftop. Sitting still and watching the horizon, he climbed up quietly and sat beside her. For a long while, they said nothing. Then he noticed her eyes were softer, almost thoughtful. "What do you see?" Erin asked. "Change," she replied. He waited, hoping for more. She finally turned toward him, her gaze steady. "This place is loud with fear, but you are not afraid." "Why?" Erin felt his chest tighten. He could have told her the truth that he was afraid, that every day with her felt like walking a thin line between awe and danger. But instead, he said, "Because I chose you." Her eyes widened slightly, a rare sign of surprise. Then she gave a faint, almost hidden smile. It lasted only a breath before fading, but Erin saw it. In that brief moment, the storm seemed to calm. From that night on, HumanBond began to shift. Vera started watching him more closely, as though testing his strength in silence. She moved swiftly, often vanishing into the forest, yet she always returned. When others tried to mock Erin for his choice, she stood near him, her presence alone enough to silence them. And though she never spoke much, her few words began to carry meaning. "You walk with steady steps," she said once, as they crossed the crowded market. "Your spirit does not bend," she remarked another time, when he stood up to a merchant who tried to cheat him. These words were not flattery, but recognition. Erin began to realize that every action of his was being measured, weighed. She was not just living beside him. She was testing him. At first, it exhausted him. He wanted comfort, but instead he felt as if he had to prove himself every day. Still, with each test, he grew stronger. He no longer avoided the stares of others. He no longer questioned his choice. Each time Vera returned to his side, each time her eyes softened, even for a moment, he felt the bond grow deeper. One night, as a storm raged outside, Erin woke to find her standing by the window, staring at the lightning. "You could leave if you wanted," Erin said quietly. "You are stronger than me. You are freer than me. Yet you stay. Why?" Vera turned her head slowly, her eyes glowing in the flash of lightning. She studied him for a long moment before answering. "Because you are not afraid." Then she returned to the window, silent again. But to Erin, those words meant everything. The bond between them was not built on ease or comfort. It was built on challenge, on respect, on the meeting of human resilience and alien wildness. Erin knew the days ahead would bring more trials, perhaps even danger. Yet he felt something inside him that had never been there before. A fire that matched the storm in her eyes. He did not just choose her that day in the hall. Every day after, he continued to choose her. And slowly, he felt she was beginning to choose him too. The colony had known peace for many seasons, but peace is a fragile thing. It can vanish in a single night. It began with the alarms. A low siren wailed across the colony walls, its sound rising like a cry of warning. People rushed from their homes, their eyes wide with fear. The streets filled with voices, calling for children, for friends, for safety. Soldiers in armored suits hurried to the walls, their weapons glowing. Aaron was in his home when the siren began. He had been sitting at the table, his hands resting on an old book, when the sound shook the air. His chest tightened. He had heard drills before, but this sound was not a drill. This was real. Vera was already at the door. She had risen the moment the siren began, her cloak swirling behind her. Her crimson eyes glowed in the dim light, and her expression was calm, almost cold. "What is happening?" Aaron asked, though he already feared the answer. "An enemy comes," Vera said. Her voice was steady, as if she had expected this. Aaron followed her into the street. The air was tense, filled with running feet and frantic voices. High above, the night sky blazed with strange lights. Ships descended from the darkness, sleek and sharp, their hulls shining with alien metal. The ground trembled as the first blasts struck the outer fields. "It is them," someone shouted. "The Drakon have returned." The name sent a shiver through the crowd. The Draken were a race known for conquest, taking worlds and bending them to their rule. Long ago they had attacked human ships before, but never the colony itself. Now their fleet burned in the skies above. Aaron felt fear rise in his chest, but beside him, Vera stood tall. She did not flinch at the lights or the cries. Her eyes followed the ships with a predator's calm. "They will not stop," she said. "They come to take, to enslave. They will break this colony unless we break them first." The people around her froze at her words. Some glared, others whispered. None trusted her kind, yet in this moment. Her voice carried a weight none could ignore. The leaders of the colony gathered quickly in the central square. Aaron followed, Vera silent at his side. Soldiers stood ready, weapons clutched tight, their faces pale but determined. Elders lifted their staffs, trying to quiet the crowd. "We must hold the walls," one elder declared. "We must keep the enemy from entering." Another shook his head. "Their numbers are too many. We must call for retreat, escape to the hills, scatter into the forests." The people argued, their voices rising with panic. Aaron looked from one to another and saw fear pulling them apart. There was no unity. There was no clear plan. Then Vera stepped forward. The crowd fell into silence. Her cloak moved like a shadow as she raised her head. Her crimson eyes shone bright under the torches. "You argue while the enemy lands," she said. "You fight with words while they prepare their blades. This colony will not survive with fear. It needs strength." Murmurs rose. Some shook their heads, others hissed in anger. "She cannot be trusted," one voice cried. "She is wild, she is dangerous." But Vera did not retreat. She lifted her hand, pointing to the sky where the ships descended. "I know their kind. I know their ways. I can fight them, but I cannot do it alone." Her words sent ripples through the crowd. Aaron felt every eye turn toward him. For it was known she had chosen no one before, that no one dared stand with her until him. If she fought, it would be through the bond she shared with him. Aaron's heart pounded. He looked at her, at the fire in her eyes. He remembered the moments when she tested him, when she watched him with silent judgment, when she said he was not afraid. Now he understood why. She had been preparing him for this. "I will fight with her," Aaron said, his voice clear, though his hands trembled. Gasps filled the square. His family looked at him with fear, his friends with disbelief. Yet none could deny the truth. He had chosen her, and she had accepted him. Their bond was real. The elders hesitated, whispering among themselves. Finally, one spoke. "If you choose this path, it is yours alone. Do not expect the colony to save you." Aaron nodded. "Then we will save it." Vera's eyes met his. For the first time, her lips curved into a true smile. Not mocking, not challenging, but proud. The battle began before dawn. The Drakon struck with fire and metal, their weapons pounding against the colony walls. Soldiers fired back, their shots lighting the night. Screams filled the air as the first breach tore through the gate. The enemy poured in, armored and fierce, their claws glinting under the moon. Aaron stood with a blade in his hand, his body trembling, but his spirit strong. Vera stood beside him, her cloak torn, her eyes burning like twin flames. She moved with speed that blurred, striking down enemies before they could raise their weapons. Her claws flashed, her voice rang out in a cry that shook the hearts of even the strongest Durain. At first, the soldiers held back, watching in awe and fear. But as they saw her strike, saw Aaron stand firm beside her, they found courage. One by one, they joined the fight, their voices rising in shouts. The colony that had been divided began to fight as one. Aaron felt the storm around him. Blades clashed, fire roared, the ground shook. Yet through it all, he stayed at Vera's side. When he faltered, she pulled him forward. When she raged, his steady presence grounded her. They moved like two parts of one force. Human resilience and alien wildness bound together. Still, the Dracon were many, and their ships rained fire without end. Aaron's body ached, his arms heavy, but he did not stop. He saw the fear in his people's eyes turning into something new, hope. They no longer looked at Vera as a monster. They looked at her as a shield, a weapon, an ally. But deep inside, Aaron knew this was only the beginning. The Draken were not defeated. They would return, stronger, with more ships, more fire. The colony would not survive without unity. Unity would not come without trust. When the dawn finally broke, the first wave of enemies had been pushed back. The walls were scarred, the fields burned, but the colony still stood. The people gathered, wounded yet alive, their eyes turning once again to Vera and Aaron. The elders stepped forward, their voices heavy with new respect. "You saved this night," one said, "but the war has only begun." Vera raised her head, her crimson eyes glowing in the light of morning. "Then we will be ready." Aaron looked at her, his heart steady, despite the fear that lingered. He had chosen her in the hall, when all others doubted him. Now he saw clearly why. Together, they were more than human or alien. Together, they were something greater. The threat had arrived, but so had their answer. The night after the first battle, the colony was quiet but tense. Fires still burned in some parts of the streets, and the smell of smoke mixed with the morning air. People moved cautiously, repairing what they could and tending to the wounded. Children clung to parents, and soldiers patrolled the walls with alert eyes. Every shadow seemed dangerous, every sound a warning. Aaron walked beside Vera, feeling the weight of the previous battle still in his arms and legs. His hands were scraped, his face streaked with ash and sweat. Yet despite the exhaustion, he felt a strange thrill. He had seen Vera fight. He had seen her power, and he had fought beside her, matching her courage with his own. The people of the colony watched them carefully. Their eyes were filled with awe and a hint of fear. Many had doubted Aaron's choice, but now no one could deny the strength of their bond. Even the elders, who had once whispered warnings, looked upon them with respect. "We must prepare for the next wave," one elder said. "The Dracon will return, stronger this time. Our walls alone will not save us." Vera's crimson eyes scanned the horizon, calculating, observing. She spoke to no one but Aaron. "We cannot wait. We must take the fight to them before they strike again." Aaron nodded. He had learned long ago that she did not speak lightly. Every action she suggested was precise, every word measured. He trusted her instinct even when he did not fully understand it. The first step was to train the soldiers. Vera moved among them like a force of nature, showing them techniques they had never imagined. Her speed, her strength, and her reflexes were beyond human limits. She taught them how to fight not just with weapons, but with strategy, with quick thinking, and with courage. Aaron followed her closely, helping to guide the humans. Though he did not have her speed or strength, his presence steadied the soldiers. He encouraged them, reminded them of what they had already survived, and showed them that fear could be turned into strength. Days passed in relentless preparation. Aaron and Vera rarely rested. They moved through the colony, checking defenses, training fighters, and planning for the inevitable return of the enemy. One evening, As the sky turned orange with the setting sun, Aaron and Vera stood atop one of the highest towers, looking out across the land. Beyond the walls, the fields were empty, but he knew it would not stay that way. "They will come again," Aaron said, watching the horizon. "Stronger, faster, and more numerous." Vera's eyes glowed faintly in the last light of the day. "And we will be ready. You will see, Aaron. You and I together can become more than anyone expects. Not just humans, not just aliens, but something greater." Aaron shivered. He had felt her power in battle, but now he understood she was not speaking only of fighting. She was speaking of unity, of the bond between them becoming a force that could inspire others. The next morning, the first signs of the Dracon fleet appeared. Tiny specks in the sky grew larger, ships descending from orbit in perfect formation. This time they came with more than fire. Machines that could crush walls, creatures bred for battle, weapons that glowed with strange energy filled the horizon. The colony had changed since the last attack. Soldiers lined the walls, trained and confident under Vera's guidance. Citizens stood ready to defend their homes. Yet despite the preparation, fear lingered. The enemy was overwhelming, far larger than before. Aaron gripped his weapon tightly, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He had chosen this path. He had chosen Vera. Now it was his choice to stand firm. The first wave of enemies struck with fury. But this time, the humans fought with a new spirit. Vera led the charge, moving faster than the eye could follow, striking down opponents with precise, deadly force. Her voice rang out, commanding and fierce. Guiding the humans and aliens alike, Aaron stayed at her side, matching her movements with human determination. He did not have her power, but he had courage, quick thinking, and the trust of those around him. Together, they became a force that could not be ignored. The battle raged through the day and into the night. Vera's presence inspired the fighters. Soldiers who had once hesitated now moved with purpose. Citizens who had feared the Draken now took up arms. Aaron noticed something remarkable. Even the young and the weak found strength when they fought beside Vera. She had awakened a courage in them they did not know existed at one point. A massive Draken machine broke through the outer wall. Its glowing claws smashed through stone and metal, threatening to crush everything in its path. Soldiers froze, unsure how to stop it. Aaron's heart raced, but Vera's eyes narrowed. She leapt forward, faster than human vision could track, and struck the machine's core. Sparks flew, metal twisted, and the machine fell with a deafening crash. The crowd of soldiers cheered, and Aaron felt a surge of pride. He had fought beside her, but she had fought not only with strength, but with the wisdom of knowing when to act. The bond between them was growing stronger with every battle, every challenge, every shared moment of danger. As night fell, the Draken forces withdrew temporarily, leaving the colony battered but standing. Fires still burned, and the wounded needed care, but the colony had survived. And more importantly, the people had begun to believe. They had begun to trust that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they could rise together. Vera turned to Aaron as the last Draken ships disappeared over the horizon. Her crimson eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight. "You have done well," she said. "Not because of your strength, but because of your courage. You inspire them, Aaron, and that is more powerful than any weapon." Aaron felt a mix of pride and exhaustion. He had fought, he had survived, but he knew the war was not over. The Draken would return, and they would return stronger. But now, he felt a fire inside him that he had never known before. He had found his place beside Vera, not as someone afraid or unsure, but as an equal in battle and spirit. The next day, the colony began rebuilding with a new energy. Vera continued to train the fighters while Aaron worked with citizens to reinforce defenses and plan strategies. Together, they became the center of hope and strength. No longer were they seen as odd or dangerous. They were leaders, symbols of the unity that could defeat even the fiercest enemy in the quiet moments. Aaron and Vera would walk through the empty streets, their hands sometimes brushing, sometimes clasped together. Neither spoke much, but their bond spoke volumes. Each knew the other's strength. Each trusted the other completely. One evening, as they stood on the tower again looking at the stars, Aaron realized something. He had chosen her in the Hall of the Choosing, expecting a challenge. Perhaps danger. Perhaps something wild. He had received all of that, but also something far greater. He had found a partner who could match him, who could inspire him, who could help him rise beyond what he thought possible. Vera's eyes glowed crimson in the starlight. And for a moment, she spoke softly. "The next wave will come, Aaron. But together we will rise. Stronger than before, stronger than they expect. We are not just human and alien, we are a force." Aaron nodded. He felt the truth in her words. The bond they shared was no longer just about survival. It was about strength, unity, and hope. With her, he knew the colony could survive anything. With her, he knew they could rise above fear. The rising power was not just in Vera, nor just in Aaron. It was in the bond they had formed, the courage they had inspired, in the unity they had built. And as long as that bond remained, the colony would have a chance, no matter the darkness that came from the stars.
The night sky above the colony was filled with red fire as the enemy fleet moved closer. People gathered in the main square, their faces pale with fear. Ships shaped like sharp blades glowed with harsh light, ready to strike the land. The humans had never faced such a threat before. Soldiers stood ready with their rifles, but even they whispered doubts. Against such power, their weapons seemed too small. Ryan stood among them, his heart racing. At his side stood Vera, her glowing eyes watching the dark sky. She was calm in the storm. Her pale face reflected the red glow of the ships, but she did not show fear. To Ryan, she looked like a spirit of the night, untamed yet strong. Many people kept their distance from her, whispering behind their hands, but Ryan no longer cared. He had chosen her, and he would stand with her until the end. The colony leader raised his voice. "We cannot fight them. Their numbers are too great. We will have to retreat into the lower shelters." But Ryan stepped forward. His voice was steady. "Running will not save us. They came for the crystals in the ground. If we hide, they will take everything and we will lose our home." The crowd fell silent. Everyone looked at him. He was young, not a soldier, not a leader, but his words carried truth. Vera spoke then, her voice clear and deep. "You cannot fight them with only steel and fire. But I can weaken them. My people know how to drain the power they use. If you fight with me, we have a chance." Murmurs rose among the people. Some shook their heads, afraid of trusting her. But others listened, their eyes uncertain but curious. Ryan looked at them, his voice firm. "I trust her. She has never harmed me. She wants to fight for this colony. If we stand together, we can win." After a long pause, the leader finally nodded. "Very well. We will fight. May the stars protect us." The crowd prepared for battle. Men and women carried rifles, loaded energy packs, and placed shields at the colony gates. Ryan stood with Vera at the front. She closed her eyes and placed her hands on the ground, feeling the flow of energy beneath the soil. The glowing crystals deep under the colony pulsed with light, answering her call. Her eyes opened, brighter than before. "They will land near the hills," she said. "That is where the energy flows strongest. We must stop them there." Ryan and the soldiers followed her out of the colony walls. The night air was cold and the sound of engines above grew louder. Enemy ships broke through the clouds, dropping dark figures onto the ground. Soldiers in black armor spread out, their weapons humming with deadly power. The first clash came fast. The enemy fired beams of burning light and the human shields cracked under the force. Panic started to spread. But then Vera raised her hands. She moved like the wind, her pale figure dancing between shadows. The crystals under the ground lit up and streams of energy rushed toward her. She directed it outward and the enemy weapons dimmed. Their rifles sputtered, losing power. A cry rose from the human soldiers. They fired back, their bullets and beams striking the confused enemy. For the first time, the humans had an advantage. Ryan fought beside them, his rifle steady. He had trained with Vera in the caves, learning to move with speed and silence. He used those skills now, ducking between cover and striking when the enemy least expected it. Vera moved ahead, fearless. She leaped onto an enemy soldier, her hand glowing as she drained the power from his armor. The man collapsed, stunned but alive. More soldiers turned on her, but she moved too fast, striking like a storm. Ryan followed, covering her back, firing at any soldier who tried to reach her. The battle spread across the hills. Humans shouted, fighting harder than ever before. Their fear was slowly turning into courage. They saw Vera not as a monster, but as a protector. Her wild strength gave them hope. But the enemy fleet was not done. From the largest ship, a heavy machine descended. It was taller than 3 men, covered in black metal with a core that glowed with stolen crystal energy. Its weapons hummed with a deep sound that shook the ground. One blast from it shattered a human shield and sent soldiers flying. The humans faltered. Some cried out in fear. Ryan looked at the machine and knew they could not win with rifles alone. He turned to Vera. "Can you stop it?" She looked at the giant machine, her eyes narrowing. "I can, but I will need more power than I have ever taken before." Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then take it. I will stay with you." She nodded once, then placed her hands on the ground. The crystals under the hills began to glow brighter, their light spreading through the soil. Streams of pure energy rose into her body. Her figure shone like a beacon, her hair lifting in the power of the flow. The enemy machine turned toward her, firing a blast of burning light. Ryan shouted and pulled her aside just in time. The blast struck the ground, leaving a deep scar in the earth. Dust rose around them, but Vera stood tall. Her body glowed so bright that even the enemy soldiers stopped to stare. With a cry that echoed across the hills, she released the energy. A wave of light struck the machine, shaking its armor. Sparks burst from its joints. The humans cheered, their courage rising again. They rushed forward, firing at the stunned machine. Ryan stayed close to Vera, protecting her as she focused on channeling more power. The machine tried to rise, but Vera raised her hands once more and drew its energy out. Slowly, the glowing core inside it dimmed. With a final crash, the machine fell to the ground, silent. The battlefield froze. Enemy soldiers looked around, their weapons failing, their leader fallen. The humans raised their rifles and shouted in victory. The enemy began to retreat, running back to their ships. Ryan stood beside Vera, both of them breathing hard. She looked at him, her glowing eyes softer now. "You stayed with me," she said quietly. "Always," Ryan answered. The last enemy ships rose into the sky, leaving the colony safe. The humans gathered around Ryan and Vera, their voices filled with awe. The leader stepped forward, his face serious but respectful. "We misjudged you," he said to Vera. "Without you, we would have fallen. You have earned your place here." Vera lowered her head slightly, not in weakness, but in quiet acceptance. For the first time, she felt that she belonged. The crowd cheered. Humans and outcast aliens raised their voices together. The colony, once divided, now stood united by the courage of 2 who had chosen each other against all fear. When the dawn came, the sky turned gold over the hills. Ryan and Vera stood together at the edge of the colony. The crystals beneath the ground still glowed faintly, like the heartbeat of the land. Vera's wild spirit was calmer now, but her strength remained. Ryan looked at the rising sun and then at her. "This is just the beginning," he said. She smiled, a rare and true smile. "Yes. Together, we will face whatever comes." And so they stood, bonded not only as mates, but as proof that trust could break fear, and that even the wildest spirit could become the light that saved them all.